won't believe how this ended, and maybe you won't want to, but I have to put it here before the road rewrites it again. They say the desert at night is empty. It isn't. It remembers. I was 26, drifting west alone with a cooler, a paper atlas, and the kind of confidence you only carry when bad stories still belong to other people. Mo Amarillo was a smear of orange on the horizon, and 10 minutes later, I was bumping off the frontage road toward Cadillac Ranch because I wanted a picture nobody else had. The cars after midnight, moonlit and honest. In daylight, those Cadillacs are a joke you're invited to finish. At night, they look like teeth. I cut the engine, stepped into heat that hadn't learned the date, and followed the dusty slit of path across the field with a can of neon paint in my pocket like a dare. The silence was wrong right away. No wind, no bugs, just the soft tick of my cooling hood, and, somewhere, a radio losing a fight with distance. It was the kind of silence that makes your own pulse sound mechanical, like the truck had moved inside you and kept idling. Up close, the cars were taller than memory, paint layered until words turned to geology. Then the first wrong thing. A fresh river of red running from a roof seam down a hood, still wet enough to bead. The air smelled like propellant and pennies. I swept my phone's light. No footprints newer than mine, no cans, no kids. I shook. My can pressed the nozzle. The hiss came back thicker than it left, a wet echo like breath through cloth. Tap. A knuckle on metal from inside the car. Tap. Pause. Tap, traveling along the buried roofline as I moved. There's nowhere to crawl in those frames, but the sound followed anyway. I told myself fatigue makes patterns out of emptiness. Turned to go, and my boot scuffed a chalk symbol that hadn't been there on the walk-in. A circle with a bar through it, arrowed towards the cars. The path was cross-hatched with them now, a plan someone had drawn on the dirt. My phone buzzed. No caller ID. 3 words. Turn off light. I pivoted, expecting silhouettes. Nothing. Only that red drip and the taste of aerosol on my tongue. On. The next Cadillac, my beam found letters in the same wet red, thick as icing. Leave your mark. The paint ran like veins. I backed away and the whispering started. Layered voices, fast, overlapping, the way kids tell secrets behind their hands. I ran. The fence gate showed up like a door in a dream, and beyond it the gravel lot was wrong because my car wasn't where I'd left it. 30 yards down the road, my headlights cut the dark. Passenger door open, engine idling. Like the night had. Picked me up and set me where it wanted me. I got in because fear picks the smallest bad choice. The seat was warm like someone had just been there. The can I'd dropped stood upright on the mat, nozzle stained the same impossible red. On the inside of my windshield, written backwards so I could read it right, "Stay off Route 66. I didn't argue. Gravel cracked under me. The field fell away. Amarillo's glow slid into my mirrors and shrank. Only when the interstate straightened did I glance back. For a blink, the cars seemed to pulse. The seams faintly bright, something tall and wrong slipping through the gaps like a man learning to walk. I didn't stop until a truck stop east of Tucumcari, a sodium pond boiling bugs under its lights. I parked under the brightest pole, hands shaking so hard I spilled coffee on my wrist and didn't feel it. When I finally checked my phone, the text was gone. In my gallery, the selfie I'd taken, I wish I hadn't, had changed in the way. Only memory should. Behind me, palms pressed to metal. Faces where there hadn't been faces. Maybe a glitch. Maybe I'm a coward. I slept in the cab with the dome light on and woke up to the kind of morning that pretends nothing happened. I told myself to keep rolling and stay off the old alignments. Then Amarillo reached back. At a gas station, a kid was fanning fresh postcards. The ranch at night, red sky, 10 cars like ribs. In the foreground, a white sedan with a crescent dent in the bumper and a sun-faded Cubs sticker. Mine. The back had a time scrawled in, Sharpie, 11:40 p.m. That was last night. The kid grinned like he'd sold me a magic trick. I bought the card, and a second coffee I didn't need, and left before I said something dumb. I should have stayed on I-40. Instead, I drifted along the frontage road. In the field, aluminum ladders, a cold ring light, 6 hoodies moving with purpose. Not ghosts, a set. A voice. Welcome to the night set. My phone tried to airdrop me. A night paint crew. UV sticks popped, the color breathed. Passin' 5, the guy with the gimbal said. Headlights crested on cue. A drone hung like an eye. While I watched, a smaller shape slipped to my rear wheel and touched something low. Later, I'd find a coin-sized tracker nested behind the mud flap. A canvas, leaned against one car with 3 stops scrolled down the old road. Groom Cross, Adrian Midpoint, Tucumcari Blue Swallow. Empty check boxes. Beside Groom, in pencil, white sedan. They hadn't just filmed me. They'd scheduled me. I walked backward to my car. The woman floated after me with a roll of dime white stickers. Participants get a sticker, she said, like a nurse. I smiled the kind of smile that closes doors and drove where their board said I would, because sometimes the safest way out is through when you know you're in a maze. Groom's Cross is a lighthouse in dirt. A sedan matched my speed. The passenger flicked green glow sticks into the grass, breadcrumbs towards the access. Another car settled on my bumper. I took the next overpass hot and looped to Adrian, that midpoint cafe. Under neon, I slid beneath my bumper with my phone light. There it was, tracker blinking like a trapped firefly. I pried it and stuck it under the cafe's trash can lip. One of the woman's white dots clung to my wheel well. I peeled it and plastered it beside the tracker. The watcher idled, then drifted east, chasing a signal I'd left in a bin. I went west. Tucumcaris. Swallows looped in pink neon. A dead payphone wore a QR sticker. Participant. In the dark scene between rooms, a voice said, almost bored, "You're late for Tucumcari." The drone found me again. I grabbed my battered atlas. When the drone dipped for a close-up, I frisbeed the book into it. It tumbled into a planter. A kid stepped out with a controller. The woman arrived next, tone gone brittle. "You damaged our equipment. We had you on schedule." I showed empty hands. "You tagged my car. You tried to move me." "You're free to leave," she said, filming. I left. 2 miles later, a deputy's lights found me. He was young, careful, and tired of everybody's content. I told him everything. Red paint, stickers, the coin in the Adrian bin. We checked my bumper. Nothing now. He radioed, listened, then sighed. Crews are staging experiences on the old road, he said. If they marked you, wash the car, watch your mirrors, and don't stop where they pick the light. He let me go with a nod. I made Barstow alive and slept like a man who'd paid a tax. Days later, in a different town, I found a perfect white. Dot stuck inside my rear glass where I couldn't see it in a hurry, the size of those participant stickers. No logo, just a mark. I peeled it with a razor and watched it cling to the blade like it had static for blood. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just how the road keeps score now. If you go to Cadillac Ranch after dark, here's what I learned. The desert remembers. Kids with cameras will try to turn your night into theirs, and something moves between those cars that doesn't care what you call it. If a stranger offers you a sticker, keep your hands in your pockets. If a nameless text tells you to kill your light, don't. And if you ever find your own car already printed on a postcard of a place you haven't reached yet, take a different road. Some marks don't wash off, even when the paint does. Never forget the first time the desert tries to convince you you don't belong. Heat is honest. Check a thermometer and you know where you stand. But the stretch of old Route 66 near Ludlow taught me a quieter kind of pressure. The humans, kind that tightens until your choices get small. I've hauled parts up and down the West for a decade. I don't scare easy. You don't have to be scared to be in danger. Late August, sky like a lid, air still simmering after midnight. GPS lost me 15 miles back and never found me again, so I was driving by Atlas and Instinct, westbound on the frontage that shadows I-40. My rented box truck rattled like a shopping cart with a bad wheel, loaded with used alternators and rotors. Heavy, honest, not the kind of cargo anyone plans a heist for. The fuel light winked like a joke I wasn't in on. I promised myself the next open station would be the last decision I had to make. Then the lonely miracle appeared. Canopy glow, a green rectangle hanging over cracked asphalt like a ship at anchor. The sign, half missing, still said service. 3 pumps were bagged and leaning. One stood like a survivor, display lit, numbers whole. In the office cube, a single fluorescent hummed the way old lights do when they're proud to still be alive. I idled, suspicious for reasons I couldn't name. Then the man stepped out. Navy coveralls, clean enough to have a closet, not a peg. No name patch. No logo. He lifted his hand with the slow, confident wave of someone who's waved to drivers at midnight 1,000 times. Cash only, tanks. Open, he said, voice a little too flat at the edges, like it had been recorded once and played back on demand. I didn't love it, but my needle was under E, and the Mojave doesn't accept IOUs. I nosed up to the lit pump, killed the engine, and kept my keys in my fist like the metal might choose for me. While the numbers ticked, I scanned the lot. That's when I saw them. 3 vehicles parked along the cinder block wall. An old Taurus, a sun-faded minivan, a small pickup, each with a door left just ajar. The kind of ajar that says a hand will be back in a minute. No people. No movement. On the minivan's rear glass, a cartoon sunshade grinned wrong in the sick light. A child's seat sat behind it, and a stuffed rabbit hung forward, belt still, clipped. The hair on my forearms rose. The man drifted closer, thumbs hooked in his pockets like he was giving me space and collecting mine. "Long night," he offered, a test balloon. "West runs smoother after 2. He twirled a white stick between his fingers without looking. Chalk. He drew a quick crescent on the concrete, then rubbed it away with his shoe. Hands confess what the mouth doesn't. "Need a tire check?" he asked. "Air's around back." The word around did a trick in my brain. Around where I couldn't see. I said I was good, capped the tank, and handed him cash. He didn't count it. He didn't even look down. "If you see cones," he said, "follow 'em. They'll guide you through the work." He smiled with only the top half of his face. Rolled out under the canopy, past the 3 cars posed like stage directions, and told myself I'd overreacted. The radio, off, popped to life on its own. Full volume hiss for a beat, and then a tiny sound I could pretend was nothing. 3 short notes, high, low, high, like someone whistling through their teeth. I palmed the power back off and said something, out loud, that wasn't useful. 5 miles later, cones appeared on the center line. Perfect spacing, perfect angle. A white van sat sideways farther up, hazards keeping time. A man in a high-vis vest lifted his open palm. Same slow authority you practice in a mirror. The shoulder to my right was soft dirt and creosote. The truck in my hands was tall and stubborn. Left foot against the firewall, I cut the wheel and put 2 tires in scrub. The suspension complained like an old dog. The van's doors opened. As I clawed back onto pavement, I didn't look left. I muscled the truck back to pavement and let the cones shrink in the mirror. I drove badly for the next 40 miles. Too fast, then too cautious, heart stuck high and tight. Every reflector looked like a person. Every heat ripple looked like a lane closing. When the world finally delivered me to a 24-hour Quick Mart in Barstow, I parked under a camera on purpose and walked inside with that careful normal you use when you don't want a clerk to call anyone. I drank water cold enough to hurt. I bought coffee just to hold something hot. It took minutes for my hands to remember they weren't made of glass. Morning made the desert look like a place again. Curiosity tried to kill me in my head. I asked the cashier, "You ever stop at a little station outside Ludlow? Service sign, 1 pump working?" He laughed like I'd told him a joke with a goat in it. "Closed for years. Burned. I grew up here." We stood in a silence that didn't fit his face. "Maybe I dreamed it," I said. "The truth I prefer when the other options point to people." Walking back to the truck, I bent as if to tie my shoe and looked at my rear passenger tire. Clean as a decision, bright as a new tooth. A chalk crescent on the sidewall. Not dust, mark. I rubbed it with my thumb. It didn't smear so much as transfer, like it had been drawn with a firm, practiced hand. The powder set against my skin like it wanted to live there. I left it on. A lot of traps start the moment you erase the clue that you're in one. It would be tidy to say I called the sheriff and a cruiser rolled out, and we all had a calm talk about criminals and cones. The people who set these tables count on tidy stories. What happened is, I drove east 2 exits, crossed over, and came back along the old road in daylight. The canopy was there, but not. The concrete islands existed like bones under skin. The pump housings were charred and twisted into metal question marks. The office cube gaped empty. Someone had spray painted "Service is closed" across the door in a wide hand. In the dust by the window, boot prints overlapped. One set was small. I stared longer than I should have at the empty minivan spot I couldn't prove had ever held anything. On the way back to my truck, I saw my tracks weren't the only ones. A neat grid of prints crossed the lot: sedan, van, boot. Lots of boot. The chalk crescent on my sidewall liked the bright. It seemed wider now, like a flag the day knows how to read. I drove on. Amboy drifted by, Roy's sign yawning against a sky that refuses to learn, and I didn't pull in. I didn't wave to anybody who waved first. I didn't answer the radio when it coughed static that sounded like someone trying to say my name. That night, I parked in Needles under a singing streetlight and slept in the cab with a box cutter under the pillow. When the sun came up, the crescent was gone. Not smeared. Gone. Like someone had washed it with patience. 2 days later, in a motel lot in Kingman, I watched a man in a vest glide his palm toward the tire of a tourist's SUV while the dad rearranged. A cooler. The motion was subtle, a casual reach to steady himself. When he walked away, a white half-moon smiled from the sidewall. I'm not a hero, but I can say a sentence. I told the dad, "You've got something on your tire." And when he bent to look, I added, "If somebody put it there, don't stop for their cones." He stared at me, then at his kid in the back seat, then scrubbed the mark off with the edge of his shirt until the cotton turned ghost white. Back home, a buddy sent me a thread about ghost stops. Staged cones, pop-up inspections, ring lights, vinyl banners, vans at official angles with no state logos, boots too clean for dirt. A shaky video showed a man in coveralls drawing a crescent on a tire with a nub of chalk, turning to block the lens. Comments argued the way comments do, but drivers chimed in with the same notes. Cash-only pumps that work when they shouldn't. Radios waking to short whistles. Repairs ahead, signs that vanish by morning. I still take 66 when I can. I love the skeletons it leaves where anyone can visit, but I choose my light now. I don't let strangers pick the stage. I don't follow cones that bloom at 2 a.m. And if a man's hands talk more than his mouth, I watch the chalk, not the smile. If your fuel light winks like a dare, and a small miracle appears with a working pump, and a man who waves like a metronome, I'm not here to tell you it isn't real. I'm here to tell you that real is cheap to copy. Fill if you must, but roll to your own set, where cameras watch, where other people breathe, where the only mark on your tires is the roads. And if your radio whistles 3 notes when you didn't turn it on, that's not a ghost. That's a cue. It means you're being moved to someone else's script. Move yourself back. I still don't know why I chose that motel in Gallup, New Mexico, except maybe because I had been driving since Amarillo, and the desert night felt heavier than the load I was hauling. My name is Mark. I'm a long-haul trucker, and I've seen things on Route 66 that would keep most people awake, but nothing prepared me for the night I should not have survived. It started the way all bad nights do. Too ordinary to warn you. The neon sign said vacancy, and half the letters were burned out. The parking lot was almost empty, except for a single sedan parked nose-in by the office and an old pickup that looked abandoned. I pulled my rig along the side and walked in with my duffel. The clerk was a thin man with yellow teeth who barely looked up. He slid the key across the counter without asking for ID, said, "Room 8, window stick," and coughed like he'd swallowed sand. That should have been my first warning. The room smelled like mildew and something metallic. The carpet was damp. I told myself I'd only sleep a few hours, shower, and leave before sunrise. I locked the door, slid the chair under the knob, and collapsed on the bed. Around midnight, I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hall. Slow, measured, dragging like someone was counting tiles. They stopped at my door. I held my breath. The doorknob turned once, then stopped. Whoever it was just stood there, breathing, not knocking, not moving away. I checked my watch. 12:17 a.m. After what felt like minutes, the footsteps moved on. I thought maybe it was another guest. I tried to sleep again, but the window rattled, just once, as if someone pressed a palm against the glass. My stomach dropped because the room was on the second floor. I pulled the curtain back an inch. Outside was the parking lot lit by a single buzzing bulb. Nothing. No ladder. No shadow. I stepped back, heart pounding. Then the phone rang. An old, rotary thing on the nightstand. I almost didn't answer, but the sound was unbearable. I lifted the receiver, and all I heard was breathing. Not heavy, not rushed, just steady, patient. Then a voice, flat and close. "Room 8. I slammed it down. My instincts screamed to leave, but I froze, waiting. At 1 a.m., I heard the office door open downstairs. Voices murmured, too low to make out. Then laughter, wrong and hollow. I packed my duffel, unlocked the door, and peeked down the hallway. Empty. I slipped out, moving quiet, but as I reached the stairwell, I smelled cigarette smoke. Someone was standing just out of sight, exhaling into the dark. I bolted back towards the room, key shaking in my hand. When I got inside, the phone was ringing again. I didn't answer. I shoved the chair back under the knob and sat on the bed with my back to the wall. The ringing stopped. Silence. Then tapping at the window. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. Throat tightened because there was no balcony, no ledge, just air. I whispered a prayer I hadn't said in years. At 2:11 a.m., the power cut. The hum of the light died. The AC wheezed out. The dark was complete, heavier than night should be. I heard footsteps again, closer, outside the door. A whisper. Mark. My name. Nobody there knew my name. My legs went weak. I gripped the duffel like a weapon. The knob turned, harder this time. The chair groaned. The wood splintered. I thought it would give, but then headlights swept the lot outside. A car pulled in, some late traveler who didn't know better. The presence at my door vanished. The knob stilled. The window stopped rattling. I waited until I heard the new guest slam their car door. Then I made my move. I kicked the chair away, threw the door open, and ran. I didn't stop to check out. I didn't look back. I sprinted to my rig, engine roaring, tires spitting gravel. In the rearview mirror, I saw the clerk standing under the buzzing neon sign. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't moving, just watching. The new guest never walked past him into the office. They just stood there too, like they'd been expected. I drove all night until the sun rose over Arizona. I never slept in Gallup again. Later, at a truck stop, I told another driver what happened. He nodded slow and said, "You stayed at the Red Mesa, didn't you?" They say people go missing there. Trucks found in the lot, engines cold, keys still in the ignition. No guests, no bodies. He wouldn't say more. I still hear the tapping on glass when I try to sleep in strange motels. I don't answer late-night calls in any room, no matter what. And I never forget the sound of my own name whispered in the dark where no one should have known it. If you ever pass Gallup, don't stop for neon. Don't trust vacancy signs. And if you do, never take room 8.